Hey gang, what's going on? I want to take a little walk here today. So this is kind of a semi-live. I'm in Arizona right now. I'm in Tucson. And well back from the New Orleans trip. I got back from there about a week and a half ago. There's still episodes coming out, so don't be confused. It's March 23rd right now. And I'm going to probably release this today or tomorrow. Sneak this in. I'll have another video coming out Thursday, and I'm at this Evergreen Memorial Cemetery in Tucson. We were here before with Vicki Huskinson, but there's somebody else that's really interesting. I'm here with the family, so I thought I would sneak over here and we'll do a quick video, a quick walk. It's a beautiful cemetery that it is. So the woman that we're going to see was a pioneer that settled in this area back in the very dangerous days of the Apache Wars, around the Civil War days, the mid-1800s. Some of you may have heard of her. Larcena Pennington Page was her name. She was born in Nashville, Tennessee, and her father was, after she was born, I think she had 12 brothers and sisters, and by the way, I'm doing this with my cell phone. This is just kind of impromptu, so it's not going to be the usual high quality 4K, but we'll do the best we can. I'm going to stop on the way just to kind of give you a glimpse of a few graves that seem to be interesting, but I'm not going to read them. I'm going to kind of continue on with the story and let you just watch the scenery. I'll do the best I can to multitask. So she was born in Nashville. I think she had 12, there was a total of 12 brothers and sisters. And actually her grandfather, listen to this, her grandfather fought with George Washington at Valley Forge. So we're talking about Revolutionary War, real Americans, I guess. We're all real Americans, melting pot, but come on. This is founding fathers and stuff. It's pretty cool stuff. So her mom died. Not sure how she died, but she died. And her father had the restless feet. He was, I think things were getting too crowded where he was living, and from Texas they were like, let's go to California. And of course, coming from East Texas, I think it was, to get out to California, you kind of come through this way from the southeast. And they wagon trained it, and they actually went through some dangerous places. And by the way, let me set the stage here. Back in those days, so Civil War days, and by the way, when the Civil War was going on, the forts that were here, it was still rough and tumble country, and fighting particularly in this area in the south towards Tombstone, Apache Indians. This was a stronghold of Cochise. I've camped in those mountains, the Dragoons. No one's found Cochise's tomb. How about a coup? Wouldn't that be cool to find his tomb there in the Dragoons? Anyway, this was rough and tumble country, and when the Civil War started, all the soldiers, they burned the forts and they cut out of here. So if you were here as a settler, oh man, hats off to you. You were really taking your life in your own hands. High risk. Now let's walk around this grave. I see an interesting grave over here. So they stopped in areas and cutting through Doubtful Canyon and places like Apache Pass, Cook's Canyon. I've been to some of these places. San Simeon Valley, Sulphur Springs. Boy, that was That's a beautiful place. The San Pedros and the Dragoon Springs, boy, those areas I was talking about, Cochise, those areas are just breathtaking areas. And they made it as far as this area of Tucson. There was, in 1857, a fort here, Fort Buchanan. And at that point, they had lost a lot of their animals, or the animals were exhausted. I mean, the Apache stole. They were constantly getting raided. Typically, the Apache would strike at night and steal your stuff and disappear like ghosts. And it was there that Larcena contacted malaria. Here's a little boy here. Looks like little Howard. And so she was recovering from that, and they were hanging out there, and that is where she met this lumberjack, rough and tumble big guy, and his name was John Hempstead Page, and that's where she got the last name Page, from Pennington. And they decided to settle in this area just south of here, and there was a big wood a mill, and owned by another big shot. I can't remember his name, but they were working for him. And Larcena was actually acting as a tutor for a little girl named Mercedes. And it was a little girl where I think the mom was widowed and the ranch owner had taken a liking to her. Anyway, Larcena was acting as the tutor, and the little girl was sickly, and they thought, you know what, we should get up in the foothills. Let's get to higher elevation. The girl's name, by the way, was Mercedes Quiros, and how she had contacted malaria. Of course, Larcena had recovered. Now they're up there moving higher and higher, and they picked a spot to rest overnight. It was 2 miles south of Big Rock, and her husband, and there was one other guy with them, her husband went to the mill, and the other guy, this was in the morning, the next morning, went hunting, and they left them all alone. So what they didn't know was that there were 5 Apaches that were up in the hills watching them the whole time. Now, one of the Apaches was actually a chief of one of the sects. Now, the Apaches, if you know, the Apaches are several different bands, and it was an older, maybe a chief with 4 boys, very, very young, teenagers. And they were watching him. So that was their opportunity. That was their opportunity to pounce, and pounce they did. So Larcena's in the tent. She just hears Mercedes scream, and the dog's growling. And before she knows it, before she knows anything, the older guy comes right in the door, opens the flap and jumps on her, and she's pulling the revolver, her husband's revolver, from under her pillow, and she couldn't get it out in time. I don't know what's going on here. That fire truck you heard is here. I don't see a fire, but something's going on. And he had the sirens on. That would be an emergency. So we'll see what unfolds as I tell the story. So they take the girls, and they're like, okay, we've got these girls. And they didn't, maybe because as little boys, the chief treated them with respect, but they ransacked the camp, cut up they just destroyed everything, took what they could, pillaged, took the girls, and now they're on the run, and they're heading back to their stronghold. And she was very smart in that you know, she was a pioneer woman, so she started leaving, cutting her clothes up and leaving. And these guys were, the Indians were so focused on getting away that they didn't notice she was leaving like the breadcrumb trail of little pieces of her dress and tearing up and things. It was a great trail because her husband, they got some dragoons from the fort, and they had a little posse, and they were going after them, and they were behind them. Now they knew they were being tracked, so they decided, because look at this. This is a little reminiscent of New Orleans. I don't know if you guys agree, but very interesting here. You have multiple people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people here in this vault. So Larcena, she's leaving this trail, and these guys know, and they're like, we've got to kill Larcena. We've got to kill her because she's slowing us down. She can't keep up. I don't know if she was doing it on purpose or what, but we gotta kill her. So what they did is they brought her to the edge of a cliff. Well, it was a ravine, and they stuck her with the lance. All they had was the pistol, but they used the lances. They had bows. They used the lances to stuck her, and they pushed her down, and then they started throwing rocks at her. And then they jumped down, and the one Indian took a big rock and smashed her head in, and she went unconscious. They thought she was dead. They thought she was dead. And that's where they left her. Well, here we have the action over here. Doesn't look like anything serious. Glad they had the siren blaring. Hey, I love firemen. Brave guys. Just having a little fun here. So here is the grave of Larcena Pennington Page. Well, the story goes basically after that. You ever seen the movie The Revenant? That kind of survival truck. She had to find her way back to civilization on her own. And the posse didn't find her because they took her boots, her shoes, and they were following, one of the boys was wearing her shoes, so they followed that trail. So she had to find her way back on her own. And with 16 lance wounds and rocks crushing her face, she crawled. She couldn't even walk. She crawled 15 miles, and it took her 16 days. 16 days, but she made it back. So she lived to a ripe old age of 76 years old. She died here in Tucson. So her husband, Mr. Lumberjack, John, he was ambushed 2 years after that whole incident, and he was killed. She never got to see his body. They buried him on the spot in the hills. So years later, I don't know if this was her second husband or third, but she ended up with William Fisher Scott. This is his grave. And he died in 1914. Now look at this. It says FLT. You guys know what that means? I don't. So comment away for us. So there's a look. August 28th, 1831, December 31st, 1914. It says a pioneer, 1859. I'm going to sneak between graves here. In the middle is Mary Page Handy. I don't know who she is as a pioneer. A little bit, well, it's similar time frame. She only lived to 33 years old. And before we, I'm going to jump over here because her kids with Mr. Scott, there are two here, a daughter and a son. The son, W.M. William Pennington Scott, 1871 to 1924, a pioneer. And then Georgie is here 1873 to 1946, and they all say a pioneer, and they sure were, weren't they? Georgie Hazel Scott Forbes, and here's her husband Robert Humphrey Forbes, who lived to 1968. He lived to 101 years old, gang. 1867 to 1968, 101. I saw 67, I was like, what the? Pretty cool. Well, Larcena lived to 76. That was pretty old for back then. I'm going to give you a close-up of her stone. Again, I'm on my cell phone here, just wheeling and dealing. See here, wife of William F. Scott, January 10th, 1887, March 31st, 1913, a pioneer, 1857. I have to go back and look at what the, I mean, that's probably right in the middle of everything. So, all right, we're gonna sign off here, and just a little quick semi-live from Tucson. It's Wednesday, so I'll try to post it same day. And don't forget, there's more New Orleans stuff coming up. It takes a couple of weeks to edit these things, some good stories, and then after that, towards next month, I've got still stuff that I shot last fall and summer that will roll into, and of course I'm gonna get back at it. So lots to come. And oh, let me throw in also this, the merch is about a couple of weeks away. I think you guys will like it. So anyway, to the Scott family and the Penningtons, I don't know where they're buried. They all hopefully are resting in peace here in Tucson, Arizona. See you later, guys.